Week 5 of fantasy hockey is over and a lot has changed, and it's not just my mustache. It's throughout the league. The Jets have 14 wins in their first 15 games, setting an NHL record. Austin Matthews is hurt, and Leafs have been pretty good since then. So in this video, guys, I'm going to be breaking down all the changes we've seen from injuries to power play lines, all the way to goaltending, to give you a full breakdown of what has changed within the last week of hockey and how it impacts your fantasy teams. This is going to be a good video, guys, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Starting this video off, I'm going to be breaking down some of the injuries that we've seen over the past week, and the big news is Austin Matthews has been placed on the IR due to an upper body injury. I'm really hoping this isn't the same wrist injury he dealt with a couple of years ago when he scored just 40 goals. But if it is, there is going to be a little bit of concern. Now, I have seen throughout our Discord some people wanting to sell Matthews. I still think for the rest of the season, he has top 3 player upside. And for that reason, I would likely only trade him for one of McKinnon or McDavid, unless you get a pretty significant package with 2 top 10 players. But right now, he has been placed on the IR as of November 9th. He may return this week. We haven't seen too many updates with Matthews' injury, but he did skate as of November 9th. So that is positive news there. Now, I do think this does give a pretty significant bump to both Matthew Knies and Max Domi. At first, I did think Domi was going to be the guy moved up to the top power play unit, but it is Matthew Knies who has been very good to start the season. If you watch Leafs games, you see how good Knies is and how confident he is. And the same thing with Domi, who's moved up to the top line in place of Austin Matthews. The minutes with Domi are a little bit sketchy for me, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from Knies, and I definitely think he should be added almost immediately right now. Now, with Brock Boeser, he looks to be out indefinitely with an upper body injury. Jonathan Lekkerimäki has been recalled, who is a very hyped prospect for the Vancouver Canucks. He won the player of the tournament in the World Juniors last year. He also won SHL Rookie of the Year. So a lot of hype from Lekkerimäki, who started off in camp playing alongside Elias Pettersson. So I think if you're in like a 16 plus team league, or you're in a league that requires a rookie, definitely an interesting player to add there. But this Brock Boeser injury does not look good. I think you're going to be able to stash him on your IR and hope he comes back within the next couple of months, maybe weeks, but we do not have a timetable at this time. With Jake Wallman here, it's been an interesting couple of days for him. He was scratched due to not hockey related reasons and then missed the next game with an upper body injury. He's currently considered day-to-day, and he's a game time decision to play tonight on the 10th. So knowing my luck, you guys know me with predictions, he's going to play tonight and score a goal, but we'll see what happens. But it looks like he is currently just day-to-day, so he may be back this week. If you're a Jake Wallman owner, probably likely in deep leagues, maybe 12 plus team leagues if you're in competitive leagues, Wallman seems to be a very good player on your roster, so I would definitely still hold on to him. With Valeri Nichushkin, we do have some updates here. He is expected to rejoin the team on November 15th. Now, his roster percentage is relatively high right now, but you may be able to scoop him up in some of those shallower leagues. A guy that's close to a point per game. I don't know if he's going to immediately start on the top line, because Lehkonen has been good since he's returned. And I know McKinnon and Lehkonen like to play together, so maybe we see Rantanen drop down to the second line with Nichushkin and McKinnon stay up with Lehkonen, but that we will see upon the return of Nichushkin. But for right now, if everything goes well, it looks like a November 15th return is imminent, so very good to see that. And if you're an owner of any players on the Colorado Avalanche, especially Casey Middlestat, I would caution a little bit with him and maybe try and sell high. I think Nichushkin may be moved up to the top power play unit. It's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds, because Casey Middlestat has been really good to start the year, but just something to monitor there. Lastly, with Vince Dunn here, he's been out with an upper body injury. They did say he has not skated yet, and he will not be ready for at least another 3 weeks. So not good if you're a Vince Dunn owner to see this timetable push back a little bit. I know they were initially saying he was going to be back on the 12th. That's when he's eligible to return. But for right now, it looks like it's going to be another 3 weeks. So if you own Riker Evans or Montour, definitely pluses to both of those guys. But if you're a Vince Dunn owner, continue to stash him on your IR. Moving on to the next set of injuries, we have Braden Point right now, who is out with a lower body injury. Now, he's still considered day-to-day, and we don't really have an update on his timetable, but he may return this week, which is very positive if you're an owner of Braden Point. I would say the two slight bumps right now are Anthony Cirelli, who's been playing top line, second line, so he does secure that top 6 role. We've seen a mix of players go up to the top power play unit between Nick Paul and Chafee. So hopefully with Braden Point returning, this is going to give a pretty big bump to Kucherov and the other players like Jake Guentzel that you have on the Tampa Bay Lightning. I also think there's a pretty big bump to Brandon Hagel, whose minutes have been scaling up quite a bit recently as he's moved back to the top power play unit, but that was not because of the Braden Point injury. Anthony Mantha here. Now, this is just a deep league guy, but I feel like I had to talk about him. He has been placed on the IR. It's really funny if you're still watching at this time. He did say in the preseason that he hopes to hit 300 shots this year. Not even going to be close to that on his pace, even if healthy for 82 games. But placed on the IR, I do think it gives a slight bump to some of the wingers. And Sharangovich and Zari. We're seeing Sharangovich play quite a bit of minutes recently, and Zari has been moved back up to the top line. So maybe we see Zari start to have that mini breakout that he had at the start of the season when he was on power play 1. But as Sharangovich got healthy, Coronado's now on the top power play unit as well. Zari does get a slight decrease with some of those changes, but still both of these guys I definitely have a lot of interest in. With Freddie Anderson, I was desperately trying to find some updates on his injury, but there's still no update yet. I still think if you're an owner of Freddie Anderson, I would continue to stash on your IR. If you're a Peter Kochetkov owner, continue to roster him. He's been very good. Now, the save percentage and goals against average, but I'll talk about in the goalie central part of this video. The save percentage and goals against average are a little fluctuated or a little bit inconsistent just because they don't really get a lot of volume, Carolina, because they play such sound defense. But still 7-1 for Kochetkov, very good to start the season. And lastly, Macklin Celebrini, a lower body injury. He has returned back to the lineup and has maintained his role back on line 1, power play 1. He's been playing great minutes. He played 19 minutes in his last game with 7 shots and 2 goals. I do think it's fine to add him in 12-team leagues. It wouldn't be a priority for me because they just don't have a lot of help there, and he's just a center position player. But still, a lot of interest in Celebrini. As I always say, guys that are line 1, power play 1 have a lot of interest for me. Jumping over now to the line and the power play updates. Frank Vatrano has been promoted back up to the top power play unit, with Cutter Gauthier struggling quite a bit right now. Cutter Gauthier was demoted down to the 2nd power play. I still think you should be adding Frank Vatrano in 10+ team leagues, who had 9 shots and played almost 20 minutes in the most recent game. He is going to be playing tonight on Sunday night, and it's going to be interesting to see if he continues to play good minutes. He was a 37 goal scorer last year with a bunch of shots and hits, a very good blend of hits and shots if you need that in your leagues. I'm seeing him being dropped and added on waivers quite a bit in some of my competitive leagues, so definitely think you should be trying to roster Frank Vatrano if you're not already. Take a look at your waiver wire, and if he's available in your 10+ team leagues, I would definitely look to add him because they don't have a lot of competition in Anaheim, and I think it's a very good opportunity to roster someone like Vatrano. Pavel Zacha here, and how this Bruins team has been a mess in the early going. It seems like they've been shuffling their lines almost every single game. Coyle was power play 1, Coyle was line 2. Zacha got moved down to the 2nd line on the wing, away from Pasternak. Now he's back on the top line, back on the top power play unit. So right now, Boston's a very frustrating team if you own some of their players, especially Pasternak, because he's been struggling quite a bit. I know I own him in one of my keeper leagues, and it's been tough so far this season, but going to be holding strong, obviously. And I think if you need a guy to help with your goals and assists, Zacha's a great option in some of those 12+ team leagues. Uvis Balinskis, that's the best I'm going to do. You guys can correct me in the comments below. Right now, he is still holding that top power play spot, with Adam Boqvist now being scratched or in and out of the lineup. A lot of interest here, a guy that's on one of the most offensive teams in the NHL, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NHL. He does have 2 power play points in the last couple of games, so something to monitor if you're in deeper leagues and you're looking for like a power play 1 defenseman. A lot of interest here from Balinskis. Lastly, Matthew Knies, as I talked about, if you listen to the Austin Matthews blurb, with him being moved up to the top power play unit, Matthews out. A lot of interest from Knies, whose ownership should continue to skyrocket as he has been shooting and hitting a ton recently. I think he's worth an add in 10 to 12+ team leagues, as this Leafs power play has been a lot better with Austin Matthews out of the lineup. Don't get me wrong, guys, a 70 goal scorer out of a power play, I think long term you definitely still want Matthews there. So I know I've been talking to some people, just like some of my friends, saying the Leafs are better without Matthews. That's not true at all. He's a 70 goal scorer. You want him in your lineup, but still with Matthew Knies here, he's still sustaining his role in the top line with Domi and Marner, and he's moved up to the top power play unit in the absence of Matthews. So you want to get in early on Knies if you're able to add him here. If Matthews is out long term, I still have a lot of interest in Knies, who should continue to sustain a top power play role, and that they have been a lot better on the top power play unit since Matthews has been hurt. But short sample, 3 games, I think they're at 53%, and they were like under 10 before Matthews. So but still a lot of interest here from Matthew Knies, who should continue to play a big role in the Leafs offense. Lastly, a couple other major changes to lines and power plays. Artturi Lehkonen has returned to the lineup this week. At first we had him at line 2 power play 1 when I talked about him last week. It looks like he is back sustaining his role on the top line with McKinnon and Rantanen. McKinnon is going absolutely insane to start the season, and this top power play unit has been even better. So with Lehkonen having that role in the top line, top power play unit, there's a lot of trust from Bednar with Lehkonen. So he should be owned everywhere right now. If he's available in some of your leagues, definitely look to add him. I still think you have an opportunity to trade for him. It's just contingent on who you're going to be trading away to acquire him. But a lot of love here from Lehkonen, who plays big minutes and is a focal point of that team's offense. Now with Rickard Rakell, he was a must-add for the last, I'm pretty sure I've talked about him in the last 6 videos I've made, but still not seeing that ownership go up, even though he's still playing on line 1 power play 1 with Brian Rust returning to the lineup. It looks like they're changing it up now on their power play unit and put Letang back down to power play 2. And with Rust coming back, now he moves up to power play 1. So it's Rakell, Rust, Malkin, Crosby, and Erik Karlsson. This power play hasn't been too good, but still Rakell, a great blend of shots and hits, which is rare to come by, as well as playing on the top line with Sidney Crosby, who has been very good to start the season. So a lot of love here from Rakell. If you're able to roster him, definitely do so. With Matvei Michkov, it's been, welcome to the Torts system, exactly what I have written here. He's been scratched for the last 2 games. His 5-on-5 numbers haven't been as good as they want it to be from what they're saying, or his defensive game hasn't been as good. This is exactly what we see from Torts, and it was always a risk owning Michkov. I think I own him in one of my leagues. It's actually an 8-team league. I drafted him. We do require a rookie, so that's kind of the reasoning why I do own him right now. But I think if you're an owner of Michkov in 12 to 14 team leagues, you can potentially move on. It's kind of a risk, but if you're desperate to be adding guys to help win your matchups each week, it's kind of difficult to roster a guy that is potentially in and out of the lineups. It's crazy because Torts said they were just going to let him run free this year, and if I'm not mistaken, he's currently their leading scorer. So it's kind of crazy to see what's going on in Philadelphia land. They have not been too good as of recent. So hopefully Michkov makes his way back into the lineup and becomes a little bit more effective defensively, gains the trust from Torts, which is not easy to do at all, but still a little bit of a risk rostering him right now. You can't really do much if he is being scratched. You can probably stash him on your IR plus, but still some risk with Michkov in the short term. Now with Brayden Schenn here, he's not that interesting of an ad, and that's why I have 14+ team leagues. And the same thing with St. Louis, as we're seeing on some of the other teams, that they're just shuffling their lines like crazy right now. But Schenn moved back up to the line 1 power play 1. We're seeing a huge mix of players going on to the top power play unit. We saw Scott Perunovich go there. We saw Parayko most recently, with Perunovich getting taken off and back down to power play 2. But for me, again, as I always say, if he's line 1 power play 1, I'm going to have interest. I don't think he's going to be an ad in 12 team leagues just yet, but the blend of shots and hits, like I always say, very promising from Brayden Schenn, and the opportunity to skate on the top line, top power play unit just adds to his floor even more. So I have some interest in Schenn right now, but something to monitor with Robert Thomas, probably returning the next couple of weeks. But with Brayden Schenn here, an interesting ad in 14+ team leagues. Jumping over now to the breakout watch, players that have been very good over the last couple of games. This Capitals team is honestly, I would say, one of the most surprising teams in the league right now. And with Connor McMichael, it was there was really no indication of him breaking out other than him being a first-round pick and was very good for Canada in the World Juniors. But it's crazy to see the development, and they've really taken it slow with him in the early part of his career, and he has taken off. He's moved up to a line 2 power play 1 role. In the first 14 games of the season, he has 10 goals, 16 points, 44 shots on goal. So his shooting percentage may be a little bit high, but he's still firing the puck at a decent rate to justify some of that goal scoring. The minutes are scaling up very fast. He seems to be one of the better players on that team's offense. they continue to score a bunch of goals. And as I mentioned with the St. Louis Blues, they've been kind of a mess recently, and they just, on Saturday, they lost 8-1 at home to the Capitals. So the OV goal race is on. McMichael's been great, and Tom Wilson has been great. I actually took him in the second last round of the Fantasy Puck Patreon League, which is a pretty competitive league. He's been an absolute machine for me. 14 games played, 12 points, 3 points on the power play, 33 shots on goal to add 43 hits, 17 blocks, and averaging 18-24 average time on ice. He's crushing pretty much every single category for you. He's like a mini Trocheck from last season. So very promising to see some of the shots and hits. The thing with Wilson is his shooting percentage is a little bit high to start the season, but still this power play hasn't been very good, but the offense at 5-on-5 has been very good. And as long as Wilson continues to sustain a very strong role in line one, power play one, and putting up a bunch of hits and blocks, I have a lot of interest. He's been very, very good. Gabe Vilardi was one of my favorite sleepers. I feel like I keep talking about him, but still, this Winnipeg team has been absolutely crazy recently, with setting an NHL record with 14 wins to start the season in their first 15 games. And in those 15 games for Vilardi, 6 goals, 13 points, 5 points on the power play, 32 shots on goal, playing 18-27 a night on the top line, top power play unit. Kyle Connor's been really good. Vilardi's been good. Ehlers has been even better. So this whole team has been extremely good offensively and defensively, especially with their goaltending and Hellebuck. A lot of interest here from Vilardi, who is currently on pace to have one of the best seasons of his career. So a lot of love there for Vilardi. Martin Necas was a guy I shouted out in the preseason as someone you need to be rostering, and I'm so happy I drafted him in 2 of my most competitive leagues. With 13 games played, 8 goals, 23 points, 9 points on the power play, 29 shots, and averaging 17:30 average time on ice. I mean, I keep saying I feel like he's going to regress back to the mean at some point, and the point totals are going to go down. His shooting percentage is really high with just 8 goals on 29 shots, but he continues to have these multi-point games, putting up goals, putting up assists. He's been great on the power play. I don't think he can sustain this pace. Like, that's like what, 140, 150 point pace right now. It's going to come back down to life at some point, and maybe you can look to sell high on him for one of the top end players in the league if you're able to trade him away. But still, Necas has been very, very good and is at one of the craziest paces in the NHL right now. Lastly, I know I gave some love to Matty Nyes earlier. I'm going to give some more love to him here. 16 games played, 7 goals, 3 points on the power play, and a mix of 32 shots and 40 hits. His minutes are way up this year at 17:58 average time on ice, plus 4 minutes from 2023. If you're a Leafs fan and you've been watching the games, he looks very good. One of the Leafs' best players outside of maybe William Nylander, but a lot to like here from Nyes, whose roster percentage is going up very, very fast. So if you're able to roster him at this point in the season, definitely do so. Lastly, let's talk about some goaltenders. Now, I wanted to talk about Lukas Dostal again, but I can't just be talking about him every week. He seems to be regressing a little bit, and maybe it's a good time to sell high on him with John Gibson's return imminent. But let's talk about the goalies we have on screen here with Darcy Kuemper. Now, there was some concern that because he gave up 7 goals against the Ottawa Senators, but taking out that game, in 7 of his 8 starts, he's allowed 3 goals or less. The only issue we're seeing with his numbers right now is just LA does not give up a lot of volume, and that hurts Kuemper. He'll give up 3 goals on 22 shots and get the win, but then his goals against average and save percentage are kind of hurt by that. But still, this LA Kings team looks very, very good again this season, and I have a lot of love for Kuemper, whose roster percentage is below 80% right now. I think it's a great time to buy low on a goalie who seems to be the starter on the LA Kings, who have been strong to start the season. And speaking of a team that just doesn't get a lot of volume, that's hurting their goaltenders, it's the Carolina Hurricanes. Are the exact same thing, that they just don't give up enough volume to help their goaltenders' save percentage. But since the injury to Freddie Anderson, Kochetkov has taken off a 7-1 record, a 251 goals against average, and a sub 900 save percentage. I still think he's a top 7 goalie when Freddie's hurt. He should be getting wins pretty much almost every night he's starting. They're always heavy favorites because the Hurricanes are just such a good team. So I have a lot of love for Kochetkov here, who should continue to be a beast with Freddie Anderson out. Now, this Colorado Avalanche goaltending has been the talk of this season, I feel like, between Justus Anunin, Kaapo Kähkönen, and Alexander Georgiev. So it looks like Georgiev has started in back-to-back games and brutal matchups, very, very tough matchups, and they're trusting Georgiev to play in these games on the road against Winnipeg and then against Carolina at home. Now, he's allowed 4 goals in those 2 games on 59 shots. I think right now, if you're able to trade for him or add him on your free agency, I know in our Discord, a lot of leagues have been dropping Georgiev. It's a good time time to get in low on him. He's pretty much at the lowest value of the season. If the last 2 games that he started are an indication of what we're going to see moving forward, it seems like Bednar has a ton of trust in him. So let's see how this plays out, but I still think it's a great time to buy low on him. Lastly, with Ilya Samsonov currently day-to-day, Adin Hill has been the starting goalie. He's been playing a ton of games. The backup's Akira Schmid right now, who really hasn't proven himself other than that one playoff run with New Jersey. I had him as a big sleeper last season, and that did not play out well at all. The Devils were just terrible defensively, and the goaltending wasn't any better. But with Hill right now, we know how good this Vegas Golden Knights team is. They're likely a top 5 to 7 team this season. So with Adin Hill here, I expect significant volume. He's probably going to be starting every game that isn't a back-to-back, as long as Samsonov continues to be hurt. Samsonov does have quite a long list of injury history, and the same thing with Adin Hill. But still, I think if you're a Hill owner, you're probably pretty happy right now. If he's available, definitely look to roster him if he's on your free agency. His roster percentage is really high, so he shouldn't be available. But maybe if you're in some of those shallower leagues, he had a really tough start to the season, you can likely scoop him up at pretty much no cost, or trade for him at likely no cost. That will do it for the Everything Has Changed after week 5 of fantasy hockey. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, guys. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. We're doing our best to update you guys and present you with the best possible content this season, so I really appreciate everyone's support so far in the early going of the season. If you have any questions, guys, in the comment section below. I love to answer questions, one of my favorite things. And if you're not already in the Discord, guys, click the link in the description below and join our Discord. We have over 1,700 fantasy managers in there talking hockey, talking about players to add, players to bench, players to stream. There's a lot of things going on in there, guys, so make sure you hop in. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment below. And thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.